I really was not expecting that like
I know.
tone.
I gotta bring these kinds of things for you because sometimes you're absent from the things that are material and important in this world.
Like T-Pain remixes.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
I don't know if I can focus today, man,
Was that?
because you get that thing just like stuck in your head, running around. You can't quite figure it out, can't get out of your head. You know those moments?
Doesn't happen to me. No.
Well, it's happened to me right now. Let me just get you into my mentals right quick.
369, damn, you're fine. Hoping you can sock it to me, baby, one more time.
You know what that is?
I think that's Zuckerberg.
That is billionaire Mark Zuckerberg singing "Get Low" with T-Pain. I mean, if I just let this play a couple more seconds, hold up.
Get low, get low, get low, get low.
When you get so much money, you learn all the jujitsus, you hunt all the animals, you sing with T-Pain here, you try and wrestle Elon Musk. What we got to stop this. We need Doge. We need Doge up in here. Not the
He
coin.
appears to be bored to death. He made me like 5, 6 times on my investment, and he doesn't know what to do with his free time.
Yeah. Because he's like, all I do is decide to make money and it comes. And then I can decide not to.
No,
Like,
all he had to do all along was forget about the metaverse for a second. And he's like, go back to his cash printing machine. I like the gesture. I like the Zuckerberg of the last 18 months. For those who don't know, which is the entire world. Him and his wife first met when that song was playing in the background at a college party or
yep.
something like that. But dude, because I hadn't heard it, that really took me by storm. I really was not expecting that like
I know.
tone.
I gotta bring these kinds of things for you because sometimes you're absent from the things that are material and important in this world.
Like T-Pain remixes
Yes, exactly.
by billionaires.
Exactly.
I'd like to hear him do like 3 6 Mafia and like some I
Oh,
Wiz Khalifa. I'd like this to continue. That'd be fun.
okay. Okay. I'll reach out and I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Oh, I have an apology on the docket, Doogles.
Oh, I've been
A
waiting for you
couple
to
actually.
apologize for this. I've been
Couple.
waiting for you to apologize to me for this. Please go ahead.
Well, first of all, welcome to season 2 of the Skippy and Doogles podcast. How it works on the show, guys, is we do 201 episodes and then we take a break. So, cheers.
it's
Cheers
it's
to
ev-
another
it's every
201 episodes.
every U.S. presidential cycle is the cadence of our seasons. Apparently,
Pretty
no,
much, yeah. Just had to get some air. It really had to take a break. Apologies, Douglas. I missed a week. I'm sorry. You okay? Is
it
everything
hurt.
okay? All right.
It's okay.
Well,
It's actually it's a most podcasts do this. They take
mhm.
breaks. They have seasons. You were joking about that season. They got seasons to take breaks. Us, we are relentless for the people, but every now and again, we too become human.
Yeah. But we're gonna keep grinding for you. Don't you worry. Let the apology train continue, though. I I didn't throw hard shade. I threw a little shade at my boy Theo in France, who was putting $30 million down on the US presidential election on polymarket. And I need to come back and give him props. I make an effort to do this when I'm wrong. What I said is all the polling I had seen said it was a coin flip. And this dude went $30 million worth of his own wealth in. He appears to have turned that 30 million into, I don't know the exact number, but
I
basically
think,
doubled it.
yeah, I thought it was in the 80s, something like that. But yeah, but double plus.
Yeah, but the math doesn't make sense because Trump was the favorite on polymarket. So it maybe got
Yeah,
in early with better
yeah,
odds.
that's true. That's true.
Here's the deal. If you're passionate about polling and elections, and specifically Trump and his Trump being a controversial figure, right? That people don't like to say they support publicly. You do some really solid research. And what Theo did is he looked at polls that were conducted using the neighbor method. This is what I love about this, Doogles, and this is I'm not going to go deep in the weeds, but this is what I want to talk about. So a typical poll will go to me and it will say, who do you think you're going to vote for? I'll say whatever. Go on. In 2016, I mean, I've followed this briefly just like through Nate Silver, right? And in 2016, there were all sorts of issues with these polls. One of which a lot of the polls were like still calling landlines, and no one had a landline anymore, so it was self-selecting a weird sample. Yeah, right. But all the latest pollsters, as of 3 weeks ago, would tell you all the changes they've made to make the polls more accurate because they've missed. They missed in 2016. They seemed okay in 2020, but that's a different story. Theo's hypothesis was simply that the supporters of Trump would not admit it publicly as much as the supporters of Harris. So in that case, a coin flip poll actually meant Trump had significantly more support. The way he did this, and he claims to the Wall Street Journal that he actually ran a few neighbor polls himself, like paid for the research. And what a neighbor poll does is goes to me or you and says, who do you think your neighbor so-and-so will vote for? Not who do you vote for?
Yep.
That gives the individual being polled to have more freedom to say like their true thoughts without feeling the judgment of being like, oh, this pollster probably doesn't like Trump, so I'm not gonna say to him. I find this fascinating. I love every moment of it, and I just wanted to give a salute to Theo. This was brilliant.
Ooh, wow.
It was very, very smart, and I salute it. Awesome work.
There's some times where you have to understand what type of poll might work better depending on the product, I'll call it that you're polling about. I found it's a little bit different, but I found back in the day, we were just talking about the metaverse, you and I, back in the day, because of Zuckerberg, back in the day when I was at Linden Lab, so Second Life was the product, we would run NPS, Net Promoter Score stuffs. And Net Promoter Score, in case people are not familiar, says how likely are you to recommend this product to friends or family?
And it's a garbage polling technique.
Okay. Well, I mean, the idea, there you go. Just come right out and say it. The idea is that you using something or being satisfied with something is not nearly as critical or indicative as you recommending a thing like that. So that's what it's trying to figure out. But with something like Second Life, being in a virtual world, like people ain't trying to tell other people that they're dressing up their little avatar.
I don't have a real life. I have a second life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not even related to satisfaction. Like it's an interesting thing. So it's a different version. It's different than neighbor poll. It's a different version. So Theo, well played. I mean, get you $1. Get you $1.
I recently had a polling experience with a retailer where I purchased their product. They sent me a survey. I felt really proud of myself. I was kind enough to fill it out. I gave the experience an 8 out of 10 and was immediately contacted by the regional manager. Immediately.
Okay.
And he's like, please tell me what was wrong. I'm so sorry you had a horrible experience, blah, blah, blah. I reply back, dude, it was great. I'm happy as can be. I thought 8 out of 10 was like quality. Like I just grade on a curve, right? He goes, no, we strive for 10s. I can guarantee Doogles behind the scenes, the management team is doing Net Promoter Score stuff. Because in Net Promoter Score stuff, and I have a whole issue with this, which I won't go into, basically 9s and 10s are the only things that matter. And I said, the guy was awesome. Just revise it to a 10 for me. He was unable to revise the score. But he gave me a link so I could revise the score. When I revised it to a 10, they sent me money. And all I think about, the reason I'm telling you this, sorry for being so personalized here, is what a waste of resources that is. You have a manager running around chasing his tail on emailing people that give things 8 out of 10, and then you give away money, all because you're letting Net Promoter Score run the tail Net Promoter Score run your organization. Not impressive to me.
I love when you have strong feelings about just
The thing
random
is,
things.
I really like the good I purchased, but
I know.
now I'm really worried about the management team of that organization. I seriously am.
Are you shorting the
They,
stock?
they are claiming, I'm going to look into that actually. They are claiming, I can guarantee they have these KPIs. I need to pull this NK. And they're claiming to be a metrics run organization. What they're actually doing is just being idiots on email to their customers that are delighted, telling you.
Oh, I feel for you. I feel for you.
And then giving away their profit
No, you're
margin.
done. Nope. No, you're done. You're done. You're done. All right, I'm going to switch it up, reach into the fishbowl for a quiz. Are you ready for a quiz?
What if I don't want to be done? I feel you cut me off. I love
I
it.
did.
Thank you so much. I need to be
did.
cut off on this.
You need it. Yeah, you
Go
need it to be
quiz.
done. So, as you know, a few weeks ago, you sent over to me a little graph that you found on the tweeters. And this little graph was showing year-to-date performance for a whole bunch of years. And it said 2024 is the best year-to-date performance since 1999 through whatever time period that was coming in. It was sometime like in September, October. I can't remember when it was. And the only line that was labeled was 2024. And I was like, what are the other lines? I want to know what's number 2, what's number 3. I just want to know. So I'm Doogles. So here's what I did. This is a quiz, so don't you take a gander. So here's what I did. I went back to 1926 and I think that was just S&P 500, but I looked at entire stock market and said, if you take the monthly returns year to date, 1926 through October of 2024, through that October, what are the best years? What are the worst years? That's what I want to quiz you on. So this is through October, entire US stock market, year to date, October of any given year. I want you to get 3 out of the 5 best performing years. Correct.
This feels impossible. And I don't know who would know this knowledge. I don't know who like logs what the stock market did for the first 10 months of the year into their mentals.
Maybe you. Could be you. Could be you. What do you think? Don't think too hard.
I love this quiz. Okay, so my first guess is going to be 1999, although I'm worried that was concentrated more to the NASDAQ.
Yeah, that's not, it's not one of the top 5.
Okay. You started in 1926, you said?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, I'm gonna go with 1929.
Nope.
Okay.
You got one more. You got one more guess, or one more incorrect.
Yeah, you
answer.
said I get 5
Puts you
guesses,
out of-
and I get
but I say get 3 out of 5. If you get 3 wrong, then you're out of contention.
I mean, really? All right. All right. We had some movement back in the 70s. I think 74 was a good year.
Ooh, it's 75. 73 and 74 were both bad years.
Okay, 75. And then there's a 50s in there, right? So Great Depression happens, and then things roar back.
Ooh, boy, do
and
they.
Like there's I think again I'd go like 56. That's my guess.
58 was one of them. So
okay.
A general ballpark. All right, so 5 best years through October of that year. 1933.
I should have got that one. Should have got that.
Because
that's when things finally start roaring back. I mean, it drops so much
that's
that
right.
You don't get back to par until the 50s, but
that's right. 54. 54 is when you get back to par. So 1933, 40.6% positive through October.
Blazing.
1975, 34.7% positive. Third was 1958. Fourth was 1935. Fifth was 1954. So those are the tops. I won't quiz you on the bottom to spare our.
Wait, I said 54 for the record.
You said 56.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Don't tell me what you did or did not say.
Because I was guessing both 54 and 58 at the same time, Douglas.
There you go. All right, five worst. I won't quiz you here. I'll just say it. Five worst. 2008 is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
1931, second worst. 1937, third worst. 1974, fourth worst. And 2002, fifth worst. Two 2000s in the bottom five. That's what a decade. What a decade. I'm going to call it the lost decade. I'm just going to throw that out there.
You said 2002?
2002.
Okay. One of the 5 worst years.
Yeah. 2002 through October was down by 21%. That's rough.
Fascinating knowledge. So, in the grand scheme of things, this is just interesting factoids, correct?
Yep.
You don't have a larger point?
No. It's just looking at that point. The reason I was interested, I can tell you this. The reason I was interested is because one of the things that stock market is a little bit random. So one of the things that interests me is with that chart that you sent over, I was curious, are the other lines years that ended up more positive, less positive? Did things tend to take off? Did they crater? Did they stay about the same? I just get curious about that. Not that it has an implication for what happens this year. Every year is different. But I just get curious about it. So that's why I looked into it. But there is not a bigger takeaway.
Yeah, I'm now super frustrated that I didn't get that perfect.
By the way, 2024, when you're looking all time for this, is 25th best.
Fascinating. So the graph was just from 2000 on. Is that right?
I think it was 1999 on and S&P 500, not the whole stock market. So there's just there's differences. Lots of 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, stock market been around for a hot minute, man. Hot minute.
Nice. What else is in your fishbowl?
I don't want to. This is not pure shade. This is not pure shade, but it's like a little umbrella that I want to put over. So there's this paper that Bridgewater Associates, that big old hedge fund, Ray Dalio's hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates, put out back in September. It's called, "Is an AI Bubble Ahead of Us or Behind Us?"
Mm-hmm.
Central theme here is he's saying, this is the subtitle too, the greatest bubbles need a transformational technology and a ripe macro and monetary backdrop. And now we have both. So what he's saying, this is Greg Jensen, what he's saying is it's ahead of us. We ain't seen nothing yet.
I'd argue it's both, to be honest.
It's both ahead of us and behind us?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of that?
There are parts of the bubble that are already popping, and there's an incredible amount of investment. There's more companies to fail. So if you follow the venture community, you see all these AI startups pop up out of the woodwork every month.
Yep.
And then half the time, ChatGPT and OpenAI just release a new feature that completely kills that idea. So bubbles are already popping from that perspective, but they got their initial investment to do like whatever feature ChatGPT had not released yet, and then all of a sudden, like there was a bunch of voice chatbots and cursor control and editing within multiple apps, and then all the latest ones just say, "Oh, we're releasing that now," and they killed. So yeah, it's both ahead of us and behind us. Honestly,
sure, everything is behind us and ahead of us.
So frustrated.
Everything. Here's some of the points, and this is why I'm saying I'm not really throwing pure shade at Greg. I think I like when people take takes. You got takes, you put them down on paper. That's great. It's good to read, but it's a little bit of an umbrella because it's almost there's the amount of speculation and thumb sucking that's necessary here. You could just take in either direction, but I want to lay out a few of the things he says. So the reasons that he's saying that it's ahead of us he's saying the current conditions that we have right now can fuel equities. Take AI out of it for a moment. They can just fuel equities because you got typically, according to what Greg's saying, and I could see this directionally, typically he said when the Fed gets into a place where the Fed's like, we're going to start cutting rates, that comes along with decreased cash flows, decreased profits, like things are more dire. And he's saying if the Fed does what the Fed says it's fitting to do, which is cut down a couple points, cash rules everything around me. Right? We're in like a pretty solid performance time for companies, and you're cutting rates, and you're cutting rates. So equities in general, fertile ground. That's a component of it. Then he says, from an AI investment perspective, the cost of falling behind is so much higher than the cost of overinvesting. And he includes a bunch of quotes from the big names that are investing, right? From Alphabet, from Meta, that
Yeah,
people are
they've
like,
all
we
said that. They've all
yeah,
been clear as day
exactly.
about I'd I'd rather burn billions upon billions of dollars and have my
Yep.
company disappear from out,
Yep.
than I would miss a boat on this.
That's right. Now, this next point that he brings up is it has a little bit of that skippity doo dah flavor of what you were spitting. Is he saying that there's the broader narrative that all the AI success is already priced in? But he's like, it's priced in a concentrated way, but it's not priced in a widespread way. So yes, it might be priced in for Nvidia. It might be priced in for Meta, maybe, but it's not priced in for insert company that you did not realize was going to benefit from AI. So, and what he has in here is this stock chart looking from October, I think it's October, sometime toward the end of 2022 when OpenAI came out to today, and it shows the difference in the cumulative total returns of the S&P 500 without the big AI companies and the S&P 500 with, which is kind of the Magnificent Seven, I think, in the end, but yeah, and still. And he's like, S&P 500 without the AI, it hasn't done much. It's up like 25% in that time period. In comparison, it hasn't done much. Whereas with
Mhm.
AI, you talk about 125%. It's again, it's basically the same argument as Magnificent Seven. I think it's the same companies.
I mean, this is like such a cool graph, but it's a market cap weighted index.
Yes, exactly.
And
This is
for
the
those who don't know, that just means that the largest companies matter more. And the largest companies, just at the moment we are today, are Nvidia and Microsoft and Google, etc.
yep, yep,
They've also been the best performing companies, and so it's kind of like a pretty graph that doesn't actually mean much at the end of the day.
yep.
If this was like equal weight or some other way
Yeah,
where
something
you
like that.
it's not completely tilted to a huge slice of taking Microsoft out of the pie, I might buy it more than I actually
Yep.
do.
I hear that. So I'm reading along, I'm reading along. I'm like, okay, thumb suck here, thumb suck there. All right. Okay. Where he kind of really lost me, I want to get your view on this, is at the very end. At the very end, he says, when you look at expected returns of equities in comparison to returns of cash, we could go a lot further down from here. Here's what he means. He shows this graph going back to the 20s, 1920s,
Mm-hmm.
looking at equity risk premium over cash. And it goes up and down. And he shows that in 29, big crash. Equities weren't getting nothing compared to cash. He shows in 2000, big old crash, right? We know these times. And he's like, and we're a little bit above 0%. So if you look at 29 or 2000, you're at negative 5%. So we could go a lot further down. So therefore, we're going to go up. That argument was the one where I was like, okay, now even with the thumb suck, I don't understand this. You could easily look at the same graph and say, ooh, it's not good. Like we could be at the place
Yeah,
where
it's
things are about to
currently
turn.
trending down as if.
Yeah, yeah. If he'd like just left this off, I think I'm not even sure I would have brought it up here on the pod because I was like, okay, it's interesting. And then I went, this one, this is where you're just betting, coin flip that it's gonna go in a certain direction.
He had the intern pull this graph and he just felt like he had to throw it in there, even though it's completely nonsensical to this point.
Yep.
I'm in a shade throwing mood, so there you go. Um, when we talk about bubbles, there's a book on my shelf behind me by Daniel Gross called Pop: How Bubbles Are Great for the Economy. It's an
Yep,
awesome
yep,
read. It's an easy read. It will cost you $5 if you buy use one on Amazon or whatever. So great about internet bubble and telecom or telegraph bubble, uh, railroad bubble, etc. This is great. I'm excited for it, but it's not easy, and there will be some pain associated with that. On the shade throwing train, Douglas, if it's okay to go there.
please do.
I have thrown lots of shade at Chamath. I can't say his last name, so we're just going to
Yep.
call him Chamath, a former Facebook fame and now all in podcast fame. I told you last week I'm reading the revised edition of The Intelligent Investor, and I'm confident in saying that the only person that likes Chamath significantly more than me is Jason Swag. The dude, he kills him. He kills him in nearly every write up with the fact that he lost his investors 99.6% of his most recent SPAC, et cetera, et cetera. I really enjoyed that aspect. I told you Jason's a little snarky in this revised comment, and like there is no love lost between he's calling that guy out on the rug chapter after chapter. It's really fun.
I enjoyed on the same Chamath train. I enjoyed many of the memes that came out that were like a take on the Nate Silver running simulations thing. He's like, I run 40,000 simulations. So for those that did not see it, Nate Silver, who is a respected stats guy, but does polls as a component of that. His book On the Edge, I do recommend for those that are interested in Nate Silver type stuff. Anyway, he ran a bunch of simulations about the U.S. election, and so he came out and he said we ran 40,000 simulations, and Harris won like I don't
No, it
know.
was 80,000
Oh,
and Harris
80,000. That's what it was.
won
40,000.
4,012. Like
Yeah, something
again,
like that.
he said
Coin flip.
it was a dead heat coin flip. And my boy Theo in France said,
That's
you
right.
used
That's
the
right.
wrong polling method, and I'm gonna make $80 million because of this.
And so there was one that you sent over to me that said I ran 80,000 simulations and Chamath lost investors 99.6% of their money in all of them. Something like that. Oh, I enjoy it. A little investor humor. I enjoy that.
It's funny. Very funny.
You,
For,
we, oh, no, you're gonna
no, go.
switch it up? No, no, no. Go for it.
One consistent thing I say on the show all the time is we don't talk politics. I don't like talking politics. This post-election show, we've talked more politics than I like. And there's actually one more thing I want to talk about because I want to take politics out of it and talk about two economies, which we've talked about a ton on the show in terms of the haves and the have-nots. And
Yes,
so,
do this. And by the
yeah,
way, I think we were about to go down a similar route from different directions. So this is great.
love it. So, post election, there's a regroup on the Democratic side and celebration on the Republican side, and that makes perfect sense, right? It was not as close as nearly anyone wanted. The New York Times had an article, and I just want to talk about one piece because I think, again, hindsight is 2020. In retrospect, this makes all the sense in the world, but it appeared to surprise people like Nate Silver. It certainly surprised me. The Democratic turnout was much lower than expected. And the hypothesis around this goes to this two economies piece. It goes to the city dwellers who often are more likely to vote Democratic are probably owners of equities, maybe owners of their place of residence, which has gone up significantly in most cities. And their economic conditions have been pretty rosy for the past 4 years. So there's not the sense of urgency, right? And you and I have talked about this in a roundabout way with like, you look at unemployment rates, you look at the price of gasoline, you look at stock market returns, and the economy, by all those measures, is in a really healthy place, like a really, really healthy place. So people who are most impacted by those metrics simply don't have a sense of urgency to turn out. And it appears based on the data that they just did not turn out. Now, someone who does not benefit from those factors, which I'm stereotyping here, but I'm just trying to recap the New York Times article, maybe live in a more rural place. Maybe they don't have the same amount of equity ownership. And it may be painted to them that, or they may feel it, and it also may be portrayed to them that the economy is in a really rough place. If you do that, you're more likely to turn out. So it's fascinating to me that this is the first time I saw the lens of the two economies get painted as and in these two economies, they're likely to vote for different people. And the turnout was drastically different than expected. Like it all kind of adds up. I don't know. I just please help me
Yeah.
articulate this, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating too. And what the thing I was starting to say before was you, me, we don't do predictions, but I'm about to do some pontifications. This feeds off of what you were saying. You know how we've several times on here talked about there's a split, like there are ways to split the way that we are looking at economic indicators, such that yes, if you look in aggregate, it looks rosy. If you start to split it out, it doesn't. We even just like maybe 3 weeks ago, we were talking about how the folks in I think they call it's like the lowest income folks, their cash piles growing at a very different rate or shrinking in some cases versus those that make over 100K a year. So some very similar thing. Here's where I'm about to jump the shark on this thing though. I sent this over to you, and it is not, I do not believe in the causation here. However, when we talk about how the economy probably doesn't look as good as the aggregate shows, then what you just discussed, you look at the election turnout and it's like, ooh, it's actually a lot worse than I would have expected in some pockets. This brings back to the R is greater than G, that equation that for me hits home. The rate of capital growth will be greater than the rate of wage growth is that's the R and the G there. And if you look over the last few years, let's go from 2020 to 2024. I'm rounding numbers. If you actually do the math, these numbers won't be exactly right. If you look at the price change during that time, you're probably looking at prices for the everyday person buying everyday things may have changed like 20-25%.
Mm-hmm.
Wage changes, I don't know what they are, but let's say that they've changed like 10-15%. We've seen some of the greatest wage growth that we've seen for those populations over this period, but it's after a long stagnation and it does not map to inflation. Okay.
Yeah.
But equity, you're talking about equity growth and home growth. I mean, you have in 2020, market was up, 20% roughly. 2021, market was up like 25%. 2022 went back down about 20%. 2023, up again in the 20s. So if you own stock that 20% inflation, you got 20% inflation, I'm up 30%, I'm up 40%, whatever it might be. Like, so you don't quite see it the same. Now,
I mean, the 5-year return on the S&P, to get your rough number, is 88%.
88%.
So,
boom. Right.
So you
It's
say, and these are all rough, but you say prices went up 25%, wages went up, whatever, 20%, near.
Yeah.
But,
yep.
And equities go up 88%.
Boom.
It creates some challenges. And what I think, I knew it created some challenges. I'd never seen it written up the way the article did, where it said, and the way those groups, like 80% of the groups most impacted by those challenges, vote for one party or another.
That's right.
I never really thought about that, and it didn't feel like
Yep.
it was that way 20 years ago.
And yes, and so I've run up to the shark. The shark is on the ground, just like in Happy Days, which is where Jump the Shark comes from, people, in case you were curious.
Mm-hmm.
I run up to the shark.
Wait, the shark was in the water in Happy Days. Come on.
That is true.
It was not on the ground.
I'm on my, what was it, a wakeboard or jet skis, whatever they are. All right. So the shark is there. I run up to it and I got 1 foot off the ground. Here's where I'm just leaping. Here's where I'm leaping. I was just looking at US recessions historically, because that's just what I do in my spare time. I was looking at US recessions, and then the years, when I was looking at the years, I go, I started to correlate in my mind the years with regard to who was the president at the time. Like,
oh, wait, I know where this goes. You should stop right now. Don't do it. You're gonna ruin the show forever. Don't do it.
And since the Roosevelt Truman, now that's not cherry picked. Why? But so I'm going to tell you why in a moment. But since Roosevelt Truman, all but one of recessionary times in the US have started under Republican presidents. I'm not saying that is causation, by the way. The reason I said Roosevelt Truman was because Roosevelt was really the turning point for the parties here. So when you talk about the folks from that might be most impacted voting for a certain party, Roosevelt changed the Democratic Party. He basically changed a lot of the Democratic Party. So when people get fed up with a thing, they then vote. Stop me. Yep, stop me. Just like I stopped you earlier.
All right, deep breath. This is my least favorite take of yours, let's say, in at least a year.
It's not a take. It's the data.
The way you're implying that the data means something is completely fabrication. One, who is
over the shark?
The president has almost nothing to do with how the economy performs, because it's a complex adaptive system, and you lay the foundation for how the economy performs several years in advance with tax policy, with macroeconomic factors, with current wars, with 1,000 other things. So anytime someone tries to say this party is better for my equity returns, I vomit all over their head, and I'm about to do that to you. So anyway, none of this really matters. I know you're trying to hedge and say this doesn't, but you said what you said.
No. Can I finish then? Let me finish, because I love your take. When I said that I'm not saying this is causation, is what I'm not saying is that having a Republican president causes recessions. I'm not saying that for the reason that you're saying it. What I would say is if there is any correlation causation, if there is, then what I would say is that when the folks that you were talking about, right, that are most impacted, when they get out and do the vote and then vote in a Republican president, that could be because we are on the brink of the macroeconomic factors that have already been put into place starting to crack. So it's not that the president does a thing. It's like in those times that could potentially be it. I also could just be full of it. I just found it to be interesting correlation.
Yeah, I think you're full of it.
I'll take that.
I'll leave it at that. There has been a strong trend worldwide to vote for the opposite party
That is true.
Whoever has power.
That is true.
And I think that's the main thing that goes on. And so to me, that's so interesting. It's almost the hedonic treadmill in terms of people get sick of the status quo. So, right, the hedonic treadmill with finances is I make 50K and then I get comfortable with my lifestyle for 50K. So then I want to make 70K and then I get comfortable with my lifestyle. So you're always striving for more or different.
Yep.
I think really that happens in politics more than we like to admit it. And then we build industries around it related to cable news and everything else. And no one wants to just admit that simple fact that people vote for different and move forward.
Yep. All right. I'm down for that.
We got to wrap this up.
Let's do that.
Y'all, yeah. Welcome to season 2.
What a season. What a season this is going to be. We would love to give you previews, but we haven't lived them yet.
In all seriousness, good hanging out with you all again this week. Hit skippydoogles.com for all things related to this show. And if you like this banter, whatever this is, if you like Doogles garbage, I can't even say it.
Googly doogly.
Doogles garbage takes. There we go. Feel free to check out skippydoogles.supercast.com. You can support the show that way. We will talk to you next week, y'all.
Thank you.